Welcome to You Know His Name, a 007 podcast. I'm your host, Tony Artiga, and with me today, I'm joined by my co-host, John Morgan, Rick Rodriguez, and we have our very first guest host of the show, Mr. Tom Lorenzo, co-host of the You're Missing Out podcast. Thanks for joining us today, Tom.
I'd say it was my pleasure, but somehow you got some photos on me, and well, here I am.
And they will release this on Twitter if this does not go well. So be on your best behavior.
I was going to make an OnlyFans. Tony got a hold of it early.
Spoilers.
I got a sneak preview for everybody. All right. So Tom, why don't you? But seriously, thanks for joining us. I'm really looking forward to getting into this discussion with you. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your podcast so our listeners can sort of figure out, find out a little about you.
So my podcast came about when my good friend Mike Vitale wanted to rebrand an old show we used to do, and he came up with this idea of going through the National Film Registry year by year. They started in '89, and each year they induct 25 movies that are deemed culturally important to the history of cinema. So it's not just shit like Godfather and Taxi Driver. Like there's shorts, and like the Zapruder film is in there, and there's like industrial shorts. There's documentaries and all that. It has to be American. And we decided that he brought it up, and I agree with him that there's too many podcasts around that are all about not even engaging with the movie anymore and trying to cancel the movie, or like, this is what's wrong with the movie. This is why the movie's actually bad. And I don't know, we wanted more insightful conversations out in the world, as much as me and him could fucking add anything to the history of cinema. It forced us to watch stuff that maybe we're not going to like, or maybe is like, okay, this is kind of fucking racially problematic, so we kind of have to dig through the ditches and burn through the witches to get to the meat of this and why it is important, despite the fact that it's Gone with the Wind, or in 2 seasons we're going to have to do Birth of a Nation, which is going to be fucking delightful.
So you're going through the whole registry, huh?
Yeah,
Yep.
So we're gonna do it in seasons. We'll take we take a little bit of time off between each season, and then we're gonna just so this year we just did 1989's entries, and in about a month or two we're gonna start scheduling the next season for the 1990 class. We did a quote unquote emergency podcast in December when they inducted the new class for 2020, and we just talked about
episode,
that.
By the way.
Thank you. And I thought, this, I never take credit for this show. This was Mike's baby, and he brought me on because we have different energies, whatever. But I think listen, I don't listen to the show because I don't want to hear my own goddamn voice for 2 hours. But in the moment, I think the conversations are good because we can, be honest about how we feel. Like I said, I didn't like Gone with the Wind, but we could have an insightful conversation about how, like, it is important to cinema and, like, the good things about it. Yeah. And I thought we've had some good conversations. We've had, some great guests. Probably the biggest guest we've had was David Sims from Blank Check was on the show. We talked about King Vidor's The Crowd, which was a great episode. So it was really more about putting some positive energy and really getting into cinema as an art and not as a moral bludgeon to, make you think, like some of the people we used to work with at Alamo, that you're better than everyone for not liking a certain movie. You're missing out.
Yeah, or like Cinema Sins crap. Like, they didn't close that door. This movie's bad, and it's just like, what? Ding.
Yeah, like we get sick of that. For as much as we love a show like How Did This Get Made, that show's at least coming from a place of like love sometimes, and other times just utter
Yeah.
bafflement.
Yeah, they can bash a movie while one of them will be like, yeah, but I love it, kind of thing.
But even if they're like bashing it, it's coming more from a place of like being baffled because they work in the industry. So they'll be like, how did this happen?
Right.
Where like there's just too many shows that are just, oh, this movie fucking sucks because it's this or that, or this doesn't make sense, or
It's very snarky.
Yeah.
So basically, it's Twitter.
Yeah, basically we got sick of Twitter and we wanted to do something different.
Yeah.
But this week's episode, as we're recording, this is gonna drop much later. But the episode that dropped this week was we had an old friend on from college, Jay Kim, who's now acting out in LA, who has is an extra with a speaking line in Fast and the Furious 9.
Nice.
Nice. Rock and roll.
Yeah. The movie is on the waterfront. So go back, listen to the whole season, and we got some pretty good stuff, I think, in there.
Where can they find it?
All your podcast apps and podcatchers and browsers, whatever the fuck you listen to your podcasts on. It should be on there.
I have a Zune MP3 player. Can I get it on my Zune MP3?
Talk about a blast from the past. Holy shit.
No.
What are you talking about?
He specifically said no Zune.
No to Zune.
That was a contract deal.
Right.
No. So
what about my mini disc player? Can I load it onto my mini disc player?
Listen, if you can figure it out, more, Godspeed. But only you and Peter Quill can't listen to our show.
Oh man, thank you, Tom. It's actually a great segue because 1989 just so happens to be the year that our Bond movie came out, the one that we're talking about. So kind of all fits. Who knew? So License to Kill, it is Timothy Dalton's second James Bond film and ultimately last. Not that he knew that. It stars Robert Davi as Franz Sanchez, who is probably one of the most underrated Bond villains. We have a young Benicio del Toro as Dario. We have two fantastic leading women in Talisa Soto and Carrie Lowell as Lupe Lamora and Pam Bouvier. And we have Q. We have Desmond Llewellyn as Q. Robert Brown as M. So Rick, why don't you give us a quick breakdown of? Actually, no, Brick. Did you do the breakdown last time around? View to Kill.
I don't remember. No, I think John did, but I don't know if I'm the one for this one because I'm actually quite confused by the movie.
All right, so a quick synopsis of the movie. Bond's longtime CIA ally Felix Leiter, after finally catching a longtime mark of his, Franz Sanchez, who is a drug lord from the Republic of Isthmus, which I believe is a fictional country in Latin America. Franz Sanchez breaks out. He kills Felix Leiter's wife, maims Felix Leiter, and leaves him for dead. So Bond does something that he has never done before in any of these movies and will probably do 5 or 6 more times in the movies after, where he goes rogue and he goes on a plot for revenge, personal revenge for what happened to Felix. And what follows is where Bond kind of goes on a Yojimbo type quest to seed doubt in Franz Sanchez's organization to bring Franz Sanchez down and to ultimately avenge his friend Felix Leiter. Obviously there are a lot of details in between, but I think that that's as good of a rundown as any. So I would actually love to start with our guest host, Tom. And Tom, I want to hear about your thoughts about revisiting License to Kill.
Okay, so Tony asked me what my pick would be for most underrated Bond movie, and this is always going to be my pick for most underrated Bond. I have a soft spot for Timothy Dalton, and I think this one always gets a lot of shit because it's always knocked as, oh, it's the Cannon Films, Joel Silver, 80s excess Bond movie, which, I mean, yeah, but the Bond movies are always chasing the trend, so that I don't much care for that. And you know what? It led to some pretty crazy, great action scenes. So I like Dalton as like a kind of dry run for the Daniel Craig era of more serious Bond. This still has to deal with a little bit of silliness that the Bond franchise got stuck with.
Definitely some jokes in this one that are quite flat.
Every time I watch this movie, I always forget and am astonished that there's a scene where ninjas appear.
We can probably get into that and like the gags of like smile boys, and
which is great because one, it's the 80s, and the 80s had a very big hard on for ninja culture, but two, ninjas weren't Chinese, that was Japanese.
Oh god, yeah, you're right.
No, but they're Orientals.
They do say
that. They do say that, but Shang Tsung does say he is Hong Kong police.
By the way, this movie does have 2 Mortal Kombat people in it.
2 Mortal Kombat.
That's true.
Members. Yeah,
that's true.
Melina and Shang Tsung. Shang Tsung's first movie after this is his second movie after The Last Emperor. Bernard Bertolucci.
Oh, no kidding. Bertolucci. Okay, yeah. And then probably Rising Sun and a bunch after that. Yeah.
Only 70 years old. Guys, still
and he probably
salty.
hasn't aged
he
a
could
day.
show up in a probably not, honestly. He the guy's quite the character. But I think the main thing that ultimately I connect to with this one the most is that it feels like the first Bond movie since like, honestly, probably From Russia with Love, where it's not like, oh, grand global scheme to destroy the world or make a new utopia of master race rich people on the moon or whatever. It's just like, no, there's a drug dealer, he did something bad, and Bond has to do spy stuff and do like, not just tell everyone
for revenge. He just wants revenge.
But it's just like very simple. He's got to achieve something.
It's not like we got to save the planet.
Yeah, but also he has to be like a spy this time. He has to like actually infiltrate and convince people he's not just James Bond, world's greatest super spy.
Yeah,
it's like, oh, I'm actually I'm a bad guy. I'm doing investigations. I'm setting up a plot to take this guy down, and fucking he doesn't even realize that Bond's like his enemy until like 20 minutes before the movie ends.
Yeah.
I on that note, it's you're absolutely right, because they kind of like they almost have like this very great friendly chemistry, the two characters, which is something that which is great to see in a Bond film. But I do like that. I think that the movie does a great job of establishing just how dangerous Sanchez is. That when the turn happens, even though it kind of comes out of nowhere, it doesn't. You still feel it. Like you still feel the palpable danger from from that once that flip happens. And I think they did a really great job with that. So,
I mean, you have a hard time not setting up your bad guy as someone not to fuck with when he kills a woman on her wedding day and then feeds a groom to a fucking vat of sharks.
Yeah.
Which is straight from Fleming. That is from Live and Let Die the book.
Live and Let Die the book. Live and Let Die the book.
Yeah, there's a couple elements from 2 different stories, if I recall.
Yeah.
Of Live and Let Die and like the Hilberdy case or something like that.
The Hildebrand Rag.
Okay, I was close.
The Hilda something.
The Hilden Hindenburg.
That thing.
Right? Yeah.
The Shawshank Redemption. Morgan Freeman.
Ian Fleming's The Shawshank Redemption.
James Bond came to Shawshank in 1949. He just had a walk about him.
Walk and talk about him.
God help us if Ian Fleming actually wrote a book about the Colombian cartel and all the racist shit that you'd have to pile to just 10 pages of how actually greasy Colombians are.
I just love it.
And they sell drugs.
Well, this movie does follow the tradition of when you have a Latin character, you don't get a Latin actor to play it. You get an Italian
Yeah. Well, it's the 80s.
It's the 80s tradition.
But hey, the Latino does get to play the henchman, so that's something.
Good for him. Throw him a bone.
Benicio's first performance, he's going full Benicio.
Already, he's so skinny.
He's a baby.
Yeah.
We gave her a nice honeymoon.
You're dead. Yeah.
He's awesome.
Fucking full Benicio.
His eyes are already like bloodshot. He hasn't slept already for years.
No, I like Benicio, and I was hoping there would be more of him in the film.
He does disappear.
He doesn't get a lot of screen time, and I think it's really odd that this movie doesn't have like a real point out henchman in it, but it's supposed to be Benicio. He just doesn't get enough to do.
Which sucks. It's
kind of feels like a screenwriting problem they had to solve of like, oh shit, we had him see Bond in the bar fight. We have to kind of take him out if he's going to actually infiltrate this organization for a bit.
I think it's very suspect of them cutting material for time, and that there must have been something with him in it where...
All due respect, I think the screenplay kind of is the weak point of the film. All due respect to Tom, liking the movie.
Well, no, listen, I don't think this movie's perfect. I still think, like, I give it a 4 out of 5 on Letterboxd, which people say I'm a little more generous, but I scale rate movies on like a scale like I'm grading a paper at school. So like I'm like it's a B-. It's
was I entertained is really the more important thing.
No, I agree.
They do like but when he comes back, it's like, oh, he was on a mission to get these Stinger missiles. Like he committed like a heist to steal Stinger missiles, which it feels like, because I think the big problem a lot of these Bond movies have, and like even the ones where they hit, is that this production schedule they had of a movie every 2 years really didn't give them time to like iron out a lot of kinks.
No, it didn't, and I absolutely agree with you there. I agree with you 100%. Because my issue with the script, now I really do enjoy the movie. I'm with Tom. Like I'm pro both this movie, and I actually like Living Daylights a little bit better. But I'm actually
alone again on this one.
I'm pro.
No, you're not.
Yeah, I'm pro Dalton on this, but
I do like Dalton. Like, let me quickly say, I think I absolutely agree, and I think we talked about this non-podcast that Dalton really, I think his interior vision was what they eventually supported. Craig with in the movies. This one maybe not so much, but definitely Living Daylights. It's still a Roger Moore Bond type film, but with Dalton trying to bring it back to the elements of the book or even the first 2 Bond films.
Well, I wouldn't say that it's full on, that either of his movies are full on Moore.
Living. This one, no.
Well, here's the thing. I think both of them to varying degrees still have elements, too many elements. The comedy bits, like the idea that one of the gadgets is explosive hidden in toothpaste. Like you're telling like this really like hard-hitting, grounded, gritty reality. That's supposed to be a grittier reality, but you still have you have a sniper rifle that's made out of a camera.
Can we stop for one moment and address that? Because I thought,
please,
when Q shows up, and we haven't really gone beat by beat, which we've been doing more typically, but I feel like in this one we're going to jump around. But when Q shows up is when I had another like height of excitement where I was like, oh, Q, I almost fucking forgot I expected Q to show up in this fucking movie. And he shows up and you're like, cool. And he has a whole bag of things and you're so excited. And then he starts showing you the things that are in there and becomes just a big gag reel of don't touch that and don't do that. And that explodes. And you're like, this feels out of place. And I'm tired of it already. And it sucks. But when he shows him the toothpaste that's going to explode, you're like, cool, I can't wait to see how he ends up using this shit. And he just uses it in a very covert, direct fashion. Never having to hide it from anyone. So the discretion of it being disguised as toothpaste, totally unnecessary.
Exactly.
And then the charges are cigarettes. totally unnecessary. None of it matters. Like the facade is useless, and he just looks like a madman when he does it.
Why does Mr. Bond have toothpaste in his pocket?
I didn't know the British needed to take care of their teeth.
Your teeth look so awful, but I guess you carry toothpaste.
How great would Sanchez have been if it was Raul Julia?
Oh God, please! Yeah, I mean, man. Just look at the rookie. Just look at the rookie as a taste of that. You know, where you have Raul Julia as a drug dealer.
Any choices? Any other choice?
Blew my mind.
Listen,
that'd been fun
for you. Tuesday, it was your greatest wedding night of your life. Right. But for me, it was Tuesday.
It was Tuesday.
I mean, you just blew my mind, Tom.
I feel like that is. All right, we got 2 years to make a Bond movie. These things take like 9 months to make, so we kind of have like 4 months to write a script, and we need to like rigorously stay in the structure, even if we're going to try to change things a little bit so Dalton's movies can be more serious. And like, because even Living Daylights, it was written for more. It still feels like more Dalton-y, because even that one is really just like he's trying to stop a weapons deal. It's not about the end of the world again. It's just some crafty Russian asshole is just trying to sell guns.
But I mean, like with the Daylights thing, you still have a lot of that kind of goofy, more type comedy within the action and kind of comical bits.
Yeah, I mean, he literally goes down a slope in a cello case, like
nothing to declare. Yeah,
this has been the thing that's kind of haunted this series since. Oh God, Jesus Christ! The last Connery one in Vegas. Why am I blanking again?
Diamonds Are Forever.
Yeah, it's been a problem since Diamonds Are Forever. Of all right, On Her Majesty's Secret Service bombed basically, and everyone was like, "Where's Connery?" And it's like, oh, well, that one was serious. We killed his wife at the end, so we kind of just have to make them these big old goof fests, and they never stopped being goofy until Craig.
Yeah, and even Craig gets a little. I mean, we talked about it in our Spectre episode where there's little bits of goof, but there's definitely a rigorous box that they have to fit everything in, even when they're seemingly trying to do something different.
You know,
and it becomes a little incongruent sometimes tonally.
And Rick,
Whiplash is crazy.
Oh, I'm sorry, Tom, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, like, the tonal whiplash is crazy because, like, you've got this movie where, like, Davi's feeding people to sharks and Benicio del Toro gets thrown into a coke busting machine.
Coke busting, petrol mixing.
There you go.
Yeah, and so it's like you get these moments of, like, Bond feeding Big Ed from Twin Peaks to a shark with, like, just the coldest, blackest eyes, and you just
it's the spaghetti effect of a lot of ideas being tried out at once, and we kind of witnessed that also in A View to a Kill, where things definitely. just they spaghetti into these threads that don't materialize into anything meaningful by the end of the movie. Now, this movie does have some threads that hold out, and I think the strongest being Bond's motivation. For doing this whole thing, and they have the whole visual reference of the lighter, of course.
Should we talk about Felix Leiter? I mean, this is pretty.
This is the
emotionally his most essential.
They tried to make this a meaningful chapter, and I think there's definitely a lot to say about that. But what were you going to say, Tony?
Well, because I definitely do want to go down that rabbit hole. I mean, this movie is before Jeffrey Wright was the first time that we had seen Felix Leiter played by the same actor
since
Live and Let Die.
The first time we see him since this one.
The first Jeffrey Wright. When Jeffrey Wright pops up as Felix Leiter in Casino Royale, he's completely absent in the Brosnan movie. So
because he's got no legs.
Yeah, for sure. And oh my God,
he doesn't have a leg to stand on.
Hey!
That's the humor you'll have here on Bond and Beyond.
But I do want to touch back on something that Rick said, because we talking about Spectre, how there was some of that goofiness in, and now I personally think The License to Kill is a better movie than Spectre overall, but I think one thing that and because also John, you mentioned Q. Ironically enough, how Q is kind of brought in Spectre, I kind of answers my problem that I had with Q showing up in License to Kill.
The same beat.
I love the idea of Q. Yeah, I love the idea of Q coming into the field. but then to still have like that, oh, I'm in the workshop, I'm showing you all these silly gadgets. Like the idea of Q being like sort of his sort of like another operative in the field who like helps him out technically, but it's like, you know, like why couldn't Q be the guy to, all right, set up a sniper rifle opposite the window, you know what I mean? Like that's
like
sort
Duvall
of thing.
and Jack Reacher.
Exactly. You know, I think that's actually a really good point.
I would have liked it if he's like, I'm just here to help 007, and like the whole fucking lab is there, including everyone working. They're like all in his room, and Bond's just like, what the fuck?
like in fucking like, I mean, sure they have a Q lab. Like didn't they have a Q lab in like the middle of a pyramid in Spy Who Loved Me or something?
Yes.
Something crazy like that.
They should have brought back the joke from Diamonds Are Forever of Q just hanging out in the Isthmus casino, just rigging the machines.
Oh yeah, what a missed opportunity. Yeah,
just Q and his big old British meat hooks, just
making money.
Oh, I just love his entrance. Oh, my word, Bond. Just this crusty old bastard, man.
You know, this is a weird movie for me because, see, I've been pretty quiet for most of this episode. I feel like because I'm still taking in a lot of the
your dog died.
Yeah, that and COVID.
Wait, is that true?
Well, yeah, they died years ago. But thanks for bringing that up, Rick. But
today's the anniversary.
I hate you, Rick. I'm surprised at how low key the stakes are in this movie, but the thing I love the most about it is literally cashing in on the sensationalism of the war on drugs, which was a major political discussion in the United States.
Yeah.
Whether or not it was a real war became the central point of discussion until you started to see how many people were being apprehended every day because of the amounts of money that were being thrown into efforts to arrest people over drugs.
The movie goes anywhere near that kind of
heavy
hitting.
But what it does is it preys on the capitalistic edge of the war on drugs.
I think it's just following Miami Vice and Lethal Weapon.
Well, yeah,
it is
definitely
doing Miami Vice. One of the co-writers was actually like he wrote on Miami Vice and Police Story,
and it shows.
Yeah, I also think it's even more than the war on drugs. It's very particularly leeching onto the pop culture. Like the way Pablo Escobar leached onto pop culture at the time, how he was this big like gangster celebrity, the biggest gangster celebrity like
since Capone,
maybe since Capone. He was like world renowned because they're not hiding how Sanchez is just a Pablo Escobar.
No.
I mean, he
would
even
have been great to see him do more Pablo things. Like he's like this man of the people, even though it's all a sham and stuff like that.
Well, they do that though. They do that though because they have the Dr. Joe character played by Wayne Newton.
Jesus Christ.
Bless your heart.
Yeah, who sucks.
No. Excellent casting. Favorite character of the movie.
He's horrible on camera. He doesn't know how to act.
He chews up the scenery.
You know what, John, bless your heart, because we're gonna talk about Felix Slider, because we gotta talk about Felix Slider.
Oh wait, Thomas.
Oh yeah. Oh sorry, Tom. Go ahead.
They literally give Sanchez Pablo Escobar's like catchphrase, silver or lead.
Oh right. I mean that's right. I forgot that.
And the Stinger thing is like he's getting Stinger missiles so he could shoot down
an airline, and that was the famous case back then.
Which is like not exactly what Escobar did, but it's like a left turn from like the exact story of Escobar blowing up a plane with a suitcase bomb.
When he does ask him about the Stingers, it ignites a very passionate response from Davi.
Yeah. And also,
what about the Stingers?
What do you know about the Stingers?
And they do make one sort of kind of quick little bit of like the war on drugs thing was maybe bad, is that Benicio's character, they say, used to be a Contra.
So political.
That's as far because I don't think these Brits even gave a shit about the
No, they didn't, but you're right. It was really more
dirty Latins.
It was responsive to the pop culture response from like Miami Vice, obviously, which was responsive to, again, were on drugs. I mean, it's a symptomatic film.
Well, actually, we're going to talk about Felix Leiter, Rick, as you so rightly suggested. David Hedison plays him in this one, and I believe he was 61 years old. Now he's reprising the role. Jesus Christ!
God,
and
he go ahead. I hated this actor.
Yeah, because here's the funny thing. I don't blame them not bringing back the Felix Leiter from the previous film because he's as wet noodle as they can be.
Which one was it?
I fucking forget. Well, I'm sure.
Was it Diamonds?
No. He was the last. Okay. Living Daylights had a different actor for Felix Leiter, who was
Felix is in that.
Yeah, Felix is in that in Living Daylights.
Wow, I forget.
Who exactly? Because the actor who plays him, who I'm spacing on the name right now, is kind of a wet noodle in the movie. So I don't blame them not bringing back that Felix Leiter, but they do bring Felix Leiter from Live and Let Die, which is another mistake because
it's a weird choice to bring back an older like Felix to make it like why didn't you just bring back, like, as much as he sucked, why not bring back that Felix from Living Daylights? Because it's weird that a 61-year-old man has this like a buddy relationship with young Timothy Dalton, and
he looks like he's like he walked out of I Love Lucy. Like his acting is just so weird.
You're right.
He's like, all right, Bond, but you hang back as an observer.
He reminds me of Cliff Robertson.
Yeah, he's got one of those kind of old.
Like they could have gotten him instead at that time.
I think he's way bigger and hammier than that.
Oh, man.
I mean, I looked it up. He was in The Fly as the titular character, and he was in Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea, the TV show.
I'm sorry,
he just like acts so odd. He's just like when he's firing the machine gun, I'm just like, why are you holding it like that? Like, who fucking does that? Like he looks like he's like waving it around. Like you can tell it's like rubber and it's a prop. It's just like the guy is so bad.
But Rick,
I'll see you in hell. Like,
Rick, I gotta stop you for a second because after John said Cliff Robertson, I immediately had an image in my head of Uncle Ben telling James Bond, "With great power comes great responsibility."
Yeah, right.
And Bond's
I was thinking of the De Palma story now, where he's like, Vilmos Sigmund had to be like, "You're the same color as this wall," because he was wearing a lot of makeup, even though he's supposed to be grieving.
Oh man, but yeah, David Hedison is as Felix Leiter.
Not great, Bob.
Not great. And
so it's him getting married. That's the scenario, and Bond's best man,
which is also taken from the book Live and Let Die.
Yeah.
But what I think is the smartest move, which I mean at this point they kind of screw continuity at this point, but like I think it was really smart for them to do this Felix story in this point in the franchise to utilize Bond's history with Tracy from On Her Majesty's Secret Service, because you now know why he would go completely apeshit when his best friend's wife gets murdered on their wedding day.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
And they even reference it. They even reference, he was married, like right before they walk in.
It's so awkward. She's like,
no, for sure.
"Hey, James, who catches this gets me." He's like, "No."
And he looks like I'm gonna fucking
mad. And she totally doesn't get the clue because she still throws it to him.
And then he has to explain it, and he says, "Oh, he was married once." And then she just laughs it off, and you're like, "You knew nothing about him."
Well, I mean,
he laughs it off, and then he goes, "She died," and she's like, "Oh."
Well, I mean,
let's go on our honeymoon.
John, Bond's always the kind of guy who plays shit close to the chest. So, he probably
I just don't think there's any accounting for like Felix's choice in women. I mean, this woman doesn't know James at all. And yet when they're all getting married, because let's be honest, it's the really shot of them is all three of them getting married is the shot.
Yeah. Frank Mcrae.
Let's be honest. There's that moment where they're all standing around and they're like, "Congratulations." And they're all like, "Thanks."
Let me tell you. So Priscilla Barnes plays Della Leiter,
a 40-year-old woman, where her dad is like, "This was a bad idea, honey."
Yeah. and I
gotta
tell
went to school with Felix.
There you go.
Right.
But I'm like, Priscilla Barnes, like Della Leiter, for someone who she makes out with the best man a lot. Like they kiss on
oh my god, yeah, that's right. She's like,
that's what I'm saying. There's like some sort of polyamorous relationship between the three of them.
It's the 80s. Coke was flowing freely, even though we're trying to stop drugs from getting in. We're still taking snorts whenever we can.
It's Key West.
And
this cake. You think this is cake? This is cocaine.
We just we put Coke. We took Sanchez's idea of making Coke into gasoline, but we shifted into making Coke into ice cream, and now we have a giant cocaine ice cream cake. And James Bond, I'm gonna fuck the bride.
And
I
need to cut. We need to cut this cake.
And we need to
Felix Leiter just on his.
And then he's like the Godfather. He's in his office doing deals with Pam Bouvier.
Yeah. This is so stupid.
Fucking Felix is just on their honeymoon, like in the closet, watching her with Bond.
Mr. Bond, this is my associate, Pam
Take care of my wife, James.
It could have been Cliff Robertson, because he would have been like a De Palma movie of just Cliff Robertson looking through a hole in the wall. His wife with
watching and getting into
it.
Oh yeah,
James doesn't look. Dalton doesn't look into it. James. He's just like, please stop kissing. Like he has that look on his face. He's just like, look.
He's just like, Jesus Christ, I have a thing with weddings. Leave me the fuck alone.
Wait, now, in all this talk, we haven't talked at all really about like the first 30 minutes of this movie, which is mostly dedicated to sharks. And there's a lot of aquatic sequences in the movie.
Well, I do want to see the opening. The Dark Knight Rises ripped off this stunt.
Yeah,
they did.
Chris Nolan just likes lifting set pieces from Bond.
I was like, holy shit!
He did it better. You steal from the. I mean, you're supposed to steal from the best, but whoops.
Well, yeah. I mean, because
how incredibly underwhelming it is when they do lift up the plane, though, with the helicopter.
Yeah, because it's kind of just like a thing they do.
How do they land?
When they did it, I was like, wait, aren't they going to get pulled down? Look at how tiny the helicopter is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I mean, the stunt was probably a gutted as fuck.
Yeah.
Plane with nothing inside, so the weight was nothing. You know,
it didn't make any sense, and it was confusing as fucking hell when they were doing it.
You mean an 80-year-old man skydiving with his 40-year-old friend?
His 40-year-old friend
shaking his hat like a fucking crazy Mad Hatter, like
fucking. But like all these movies where John Glenn was either the director or the second unit director, it still at least ends with a cool stunt of just guys just jumping the fuck out of an airplane.
Is the action. I think
you know what?
The problem is with everything else.
I think when I watch these John Glenn James Bond movies, it's like I'm watching the second unit take the lead.
Right. We mentioned that on View to a Kill.
And it really sucks.
Well, I mean, listen, he's not the best Bond director, even though
he's not. But he directed 5.
The only thing
in a row
that he lacks as a director, in my opinion. See, what he's good at is making strong decisions about what should happen in the scene, whether or not they're the right decision. I don't know, but he's good at making decisions, and that's the job of the director. So
he's a workman. He's a traffic guy.
He has a good instinct for how to run the production. That's apparent, but. Yeah. I think what he lacks the most is grasp of visual language, appreciation for production design, and I think those things stand out a lot in this movie because when they have to offer up things like the covert hideaway helipad, they're really, really not too discreet about hiding a hole that's supposed to be there on the location. And I'm like,
it's shot a little mundanely when that hole opens.
You don't get to see the porthole of the fucking thing landing. They just obscure it with the door opening up towards you. You're like, really? And then the thing lands in from above camera, and you're like, you're just barely getting away with this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like it's unimpressive.
He's not. Listen, he's not the best director the Bond movies had, but I like, honestly, he did 5 of them. I like 3 of the 5.
I like Living.
I like Living Daylights. I like this, and I like For Your Eyes Only. Octopussy and A View to a Kill.
Your Eyes Only has a great climax in that clip.
It has a great climax, and I mean, but like even those 2, the ones I don't like, because he's a good action director, he's a second unit guy. It's still like watchable because you're getting the meat and potatoes you want from these kind of movies. And I mean, he was doing the second unit on shit since On Her Majesty's Secret Service. So he's like, he knows the classic Bond feel when it comes down to throwing down.
And he probably, he's directed 5 because it probably was like a case of it's on time. It's in budget. It's on time.
Yeah. He's been here since '69.
Yeah, he's part of the family. So yeah,
Well, I mean, loyal. I get it. He's not gonna fuck around. He's not gonna try to overturn the machine to chase a toric vision.
Felix. Lower him down. Good. Throw in the carcass.
Yeah.
It's a very efficiently made Bond movie, and I think that's kind of all I feel about it.
And John, the thing is, I definitely agree with you that that's an issue with this movie. I also, and I think there's actually a little bit of an extra layer of disappointment because Living Daylights, when you watch these two back to back, Living Daylights actually has some really strong visual language. It's probably visually his most interesting Bond film, John Glenn. So it kind of feels like if you were to watch all
those mountains of Afghanistan. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if anything's standing in for that. So it's probably not Afghanistan. But
like the climax where he's hanging off the bag while the bags of heroin are coming off. Like there's some great visual language in that.
Living Daylights is pretty underrated. I mean,
I agree.
I agree. Yeah, I love Living Daylights. That's one of my top tier Bond movies. But I think that's because that one is more of a classic Bond adventure.
Yeah,
where this one
I think that's the key word is adventure. It feels like an adventure.
This one is feeling more like it's trying to be smaller and more grounded and gritty, so it doesn't have that classic sweeping Bond feel. It really is just them in the Keys and then in Isthmus, and there's not much. There's not a grand.
What a not elegant Latin name for a fiction land.
Do you think any of these Brits ever met someone?
Yeah, that's what I mean. It sounds like a planet. It's like. These layers on planet Isthmus,
I'm telling you right now, Benicio del Toro was probably the first Latin person the Broccolis ever met.
And they didn't know it.
They didn't know it. They just thought he was like Davi's cousin.
Del Toro, is that Italian? Man. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not it was Davi's cousin.
These snobby Brit fucks.
They introduced. He's like, Benicio. They're like, no, I don't.
No, I don't. I'm an Italian. They probably cast Davi because his face looked like a moonraker.
That's terrible.
I love Davi. He's got
Davi is good in it. Davi is good in the movie.
And you know what? I was actually wanting to dedicate a whole section of this discussion to just how great Davi is, but then Tom had to go and say, like, man, imagine Raul Julia in this movie. I'm like, you know what? Fuck Davi. He's terrible. No, he's great. He's great.
At least he's not putting as much of too much spin on that accent the way like Pacino would. No, he's not going too hard with the.
Well, Pacino goes beyond doing an accent into
parody.
Into more like a
opera.
I've never even met a Cuban like this. Like it's just he goes he's Cuban and beyond.
He's galaxy brain Cuban.
Right.
I do want to tell a quick story about Rick and I when we went to go see Scarface at the Alamo. When a coworker was
I wasn't even seeing it. You were seeing it. I was just
that's right.
Handing drinks out.
You were working, and we were talking, and a coworker of ours was like that movie's racist, and like we are two Latinos, and really isn't. It's just like that insulting Latino accent. It's like we're cool with it. Like Al Pacino's invited to Sancocho. Like he's one of us. Like as far as he's an honorary Latino. He gets a pass.
Well, it's fun. It's funny
too. She's like, I'll be offended for you. It's like, yeah, you don't need to do that.
No, thanks. We're good.
It's funny too how Godfather 3 feels like kind of like Francis Ford Coppola being like, okay, Al, you played as Cuban. So we're gonna make your nephew Andy Garcia, and he's gonna be doing as good an Italian accent as you did a Cuban.
Well,
accent.
To be fair, he's a New Yorker, so he doesn't have to have too.
Yeah, he's not as embarrassed. I'd say he's more Pacino and Carlito's way than Pacino and.
Yeah, and he kind of looks like him when he was young. I'm a defender of Godfather 3, but that's
me too. Here. It's got problems, but
got problems, but it's not the piece of shit everyone says it is.
No, it's not.
So let's pull this discussion back into Bond. But I do want to talk about Sanchez, and because I think that he is, for all this movie's flaws, I think he is one of the best Bond villains. Like he is legitimately intimidating. I don't have
Davi, though.
Hey,
quick aside. this movie has both Agent Johnsons.
Yes,
that's right. From Die
Special
Hard.
Agent Johnson and Agent
The
Johnson.
other when Felix runs out of the helicopter, Tony looking perplexed. He's like, "What?" They meet up with the other DAA guy. He's got a hat on, and I don't know what I forgot what he says, but the actor's name is Grand L. Bush, and he's in a bunch of movies of that era. He's in Lethal Weapon. He's like, "Oh, I liked you with the beard, Roger," and he's in Lethal Weapon 2 as a different character, but still a cop. And he just was like one of these templates of like the action genre for a while there. I think he still works and everything, but Grand L. Bush is his name. And he was the other Agent Johnson with Robert Davi.
And wasn't he also in Die Hard?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Agent Johnson.
Yeah, no, I know Robert Davi was in Die Hard.
No, I know, but I'm saying this movie has the two Agent Johnsons, and that other Agent Johnson is in License to Kill as the DEA agent.
Okay.
He's the one at first in Felix's hospital bed being like, "Hey, I'm here to give you all this intel, but don't you dare do anything about it."
Yeah. I have to walk away from it because it's out of my jurisdiction.
Yeah.
Also,
kids.
speaking of video games and Raul Julia, Grand L. Bush is in Street Fighter as
he's Balrog. That's right. It's all connected.
All right, but yeah, I do want to talk about Sanchez, just like how great of a Bond villain he is, and I mean he's legitimately intimidating.
He's got suave. He's got danger.
Yeah, I because Robert Davi apparently kind of did what Dalton did and went back to the Bond books and kind of modeled Sanchez a little bit after Fleming's swagger and his demeanor, his sense of class, and I see that
Sanchez isn't like a weird my hands of metal. He's not like an eccentric villain.
No,
it's not like all of a sudden we reveal that he's got like cocaine piss or some shit. Like he's not. He's just a regular maniacal bad guy. Who is
I would have liked that humanizing.
He's a greedy
moment,
psychopath.
though.
No, I agree.
Well, I mean, that's the thing that as much as the war on drugs sucks and like it still sucks today, it is also a case of like, cartel guys fucking suck. They are worse than Bond
they're not good.
They are. They do deserve to get lit on fire and killed. Like they're bad.
By a wedding memento.
Yeah, they are truly worthy of being massacred by John Rambo.
I mean Bond.
Or Bond.
Or Rambo. Rambo cuts out one of the cartel guys.
I want to talk though. I want to talk about Sanchez though as a character, because I think the thing that sets him aside from a lot of the more typical Bond villains is that he is a cartel head, and that's just like he's just a kingpin, and he's just running a very sort of simple drug operation.
He doesn't want all the microchips.
But there is a twist, and that's the thing about the Bond formula coming into play and making it very silly. It's like, oh no, but we synthesize it into a liquid that you can then reprocess through ammonium vapor, and so we can hide it.
It doesn't go anywhere other than, I guess,
doesn't go anywhere
to be in a tank. It's almost like overwritten in that regard, because like I think having the Stinger missiles be the ultimate prize, I think, was enough.
That's fine, but there was definitely that pressure to add the escapist element, which definitely upsets the tone of this film. It's like anytime they bring in the escapist stuff, like the gadgets, or they bring in like what they do to synthesize and make the cocaine untraceable.
Yeah.
The thing that I was bringing up earlier with in the first part of the movie where there's this whole problem with Sanchez's money being laundered by this fish research center or something doesn't really go anywhere.
I really want to bring up this cast, because this is a really good cast. It is a
really great cast.
That guy's played by what is it? Crest?
Milton Crest, yeah.
Played by Anthony Zerbe, a real fucking worker of an actor.
Oh yeah.
I just recently saw him in the fucking Omega Man.
Yeah,
he's the head vampire.
I love him in that.
He's in a million movies. He's in The Dead Zone as the father of the boy.
He's in Kiss Meets the Phantom of the
Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Opera. He's in Star Trek Insurrection, Matrix Reloaded, and Revolution.
The
guy is a really.
But the guy loses his money.
Oh my god, that's who he was. He's the fucking head of Zion. Holy shit.
Yeah. There you go.
In all around. But in that earlier part of the movie,
depressurized.
yeah, he has a real good send off too. Like his storyline and everything. I think we gotta just dedicate a moment to recognize like
the very classic Yojimbo move. Like, I'm not the guy. Well, they don't see. Okay, that's a little bit of my problem, but we can get into that. But yeah, it's the classic.
But
this guy you can't trust, so the villain kills someone that he actually can trust. You know.
But before we get into that, I do want to address something that John was talking about, because I agree that there are moments where they have to shoehorn in that they would have felt the need to shoehorn in that escapism. I actually think though that the whole idea of the cocaine is hidden in the gasoline and that's a way to transport it, I'm actually totally fine with. That doesn't take me out of the movie at all, because it's got that little extra something, but it's also something that's clever and kind of, you know what, like like when you actually think about what these cartel guys did to sort of to transport their product, it's actually
you can with the drugs, Tony.
They transport the drug, las drogas. You know, it's like I think it fit really nicely, and it was kind of that perfect it was a nice marriage of a little bit of that Bond escapism, but kind of like, you know what, the cartel guys would do something like this.
Well, it fits that Escobar thing. That Escobar became the big kingpin he was before he became a character, was because he kept figuring out ways to get drugs with nobody finding it. So I mean, like, listen, is it a little bit over the top?
If he's such a mastermind, then why is he having his money laundered through a fish tank?
But that's the thing. He's not a mastermind. He's a businessman. He's a businessman.
He can't be both. He can't be both.
Well, that's what these guys did. That's what drug dealers did.
I get it. The thing is the setup operation for that whole first part of the movie, I'm lost on. I'm like, why are we here? Why sharks? Why fish? Oh, it doesn't matter? Okay.
And listen, that I agree with you. That I think they were literally, it's funny that they try to shoehorn as many Fleming elements into this as possible, given that it's the first Bond movie that doesn't share a Fleming name. So I think and I also think that Sanchez is probably the most Fleming villain that they've had probably since the Connery era. But I don't think they did a good job of marrying the two, with the drug compound at the end.
Because you can go ahead.
But no, it's okay. But I think that the whole setup was really solid. I don't think that, but Sanchez was not the mastermind of that crew. Sanchez is the businessman. He's the leader. He's the one who reins everybody in. The Weasley blonde dude, Truman Lodge, I think his name is. Yeah, Truman Lodge. He's really the mastermind, the one who actually came up with the details.
His name is Anthony Starkey, and he's the Jimmy in the episode The Jimmy of Seinfeld.
Don't touch Jimmy.
Don't touch Jimmy. The guy who talks in the third person.
I thought most of that, like, detail stuff about how the cartel runs was fine. I mean, he would have a guy like who runs a boating operation laundering his money, because that also gives him an out if he needs to get out in and out of the country.
That's fair.
I think the shark thing is a little bit of a contrivance. But I know why it's there. It's in order for James Bond and Sharky, subtle, to find a place that has sharks or has shark facilities or stuff like that, you know?
Yeah, listen, the movie's graceless in some parts, but I think some of the grander details, the grander El Bush details are, they're there. And I do like the drugs.
It's not always elegant.
It's not elegant. Look, these movies are never fucking elegant. I mean, until the Craig movies.
Some are, damn it.
Some are. Well, okay. After Goldfinger, these movies are graceless. But I like the drugs and the gas thing and adding that to the chase at the end, because it just gives that little bit of like, this guy doesn't give a fuck that he's blowing up like $50 million of his money every time a tanker blows up.
I think that's I think that's the thing. They probably thought of a scenario like, how do we get Bond to get on the hunt for these guys? It's like, well, the shark, and then it's like, well, how do we have a bunch of fucking tankers explode? And that's the cocaine's in the tankers,
That's the thing that like kind of pisses me off is like, all you need to do is just connect this whole fish facility to the drug operation. And it can just be as simple as like a scientific experiment. Some enzyme they found in a shark allows them to separate these molecules and makes their cocaine do.
Well, that's a transport thing. I mean, I'm not too bothered about that. It's it's a little silly, but it's a transport thing.
I just didn't need all the excess and imagery of this shit that doesn't mean jack shit.
Wait, hold on, John. You're meaning to tell me that a James Bond movie is excessive in areas?
But to what end?
Oh my!
I wish this was a Mike Nichols film.
There are excesses all throughout these movies, but they are they are usually to an end. I mean, they are to definitely entertain and entice us.
Maybe the problem is that it's actually not big enough.
I think
that's a little bit at half measures with the Bond stuff.
It's not them completely disengaging from the Bond formula.
Right. So it feels not quite satisfactory on the level of it's a gritty, undercover, ruthless thriller versus the Bond stuff.
All these movies are always built with like, we got these parts. How do we make these parts fit together? Like, we got these locations. We got the tanker idea. We want to do the shark thing. How do we get this all together?
There's like, do the submarine.
We do all these things, and then sometimes they work. Sometimes they don't.
It's because you got to admit, like, sometimes it's silly because it's like, that's just a mana ray, and it's literally fucking Bond, just like
just doing this
under a fucking. I'm like, in your gritty fucking thriller, where a guy just got his legs bitten off, like he's disguised as a mana ray,
and that's why weird, you don't really get the Fleming Bond correctly until Craig, because they stopped doing that shit until Spectre, where Craig and Mendes were like, oh, well, we grew up with Morse, so we want to have something.
I mean, it's all about tone. I mean, like, if you want humor, that's all tone. It's just how, I think that's where I would argue Glenn is a little tone deaf. He's not a stylist. He's efficient. No.
Well, it's also just not even tone so much, because like the things we're talking about aren't even like jokes or anything. It's just like not realizing,
because they fall flat. They're like just like, but like they're not cleverly done.
Like, bon appetit.
Hold on, guys, let Tom get his thought out, because I want to hear what he has to say.
No, because it's like, it's not even like jokes that we're talking about. We're talking about things that are just big.
Can I talk about a joke?
Damn it, John! Let Tom finish.
No, I'm sorry.
The bigness of these things that we're talking about, like the manta ray thing, that's something you'd see Connery do, but like it doesn't fit. Which it's like, because it's not a joke, but it's silly.
I would argue that it would be directed better in some of those earlier Connery, so that the joke would come through, as opposed to it just being a flat presentation as it is.
But that's the thing. I don't think it's a joke. It's just like, it's just a thing that's happening.
But it's a gag. I mean, like, it may not be a joke, but it's still like a gag that it's not cleverly directed. You know what I mean?
Let me interject. I have something very relevant to add here. Let me posit this. This is very relevant, right? So let me bring up a specific gag, especially from this fish compound facility in the opening, where, if you remember, he throws a man into a bed of maggots and says, bon appetit. Now, when he actually opens the drawer and sees the maggots, they're not even real. They're not even alive. They're all very evenly lit, so you see how not alive they really are. And they're just literally carpet over some fabric that some guys are just underneath, like lifting up with their arms, and you're just like, weak. He throws the guy into the fucking maggots, closes the thing, says, bon appetit, and then gets fired at by some random gunman who we haven't even set up in a previous shot or anything like that, or just takes us by surprise. And like, what a waste of fucking screen time. Like, the fucking maggots look fake. The joke is bad. The whole incident in general just comes off as clumsy. And that's the kind of shit that you leave on the cutting room floor. But it's here. And it's here to be absorbed, because I feel like the director thinks we don't really have much more to give you in this first part of the movie. This is the set I was given, and I understand the preferences that can be handed to directors that are efficient with working with what they have and a tight schedule, etc. But like, that's just low quality on Arrival. Something that anyone should have looked at when they saw the diopter on the camera and said, let's not shoot this. Let's just cut it and move on with the rest of our day, or find out some other stunt we can come up with within less than 20 seconds that's more interesting than this. And the whole section there feels like a redundancy, and slows down the movie and prevents me from getting into it before the story actually gets underway and Robert Davi gets, broken out of the paddy wagon, and then we actually see what he's doing and that he's more of a central thread in the story. Just that whole first 20 minutes is where I start to get dulled out before things get interesting. So anyway, it's not my major hang up with the movie, but it made it hard to get into.
I don't know. I never had. Respect to that's what happened to you, but I never had. That didn't take me out of the movie. I mean, I think the maggots kind of looked like crap, but I didn't care so much because the maggots were, in the script, the maggots. He takes the packs of cocaine out, so the fact that they looked a little bit fake didn't bother me because they were a cover for something else.
I was going to say a little quick aside for science. The maggots are not going to eat that guy.
I know.
No.
He's not rotting. He's not fresh fruit.
Dumb.
He's
dumb.
just going to get grossed out because they're going to crawl on him and
be like,
what the hell is this? This guy's alive. Get him out of here.
It's going to be like Fear Factor.
Right. Exactly.
Oh, so he's going to help to overthrow democracy with a bad podcast?
That happened on Fear Factor?
No.
Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
Oh. I like
you can go straight to hell. That fucking swollen sausage, man.
Well, there goes my dream of ever going on the Joe Rogan Experience.
Why? You didn't say it. Tom did.
Yeah, I'll say it again. Joe Rogan, go fuck yourself.
I don't feel like the Yojimbo thing really is cleverly written or done.
Yeah.
Well,
I think the biggest problem with the Yojimbo plot is the random insertion of the Hong Kong police, and like I said before,
and it goes nowhere, right? It kind of goes
it's just
nowhere.
like they capture him, then Sanchez immediately fucking tanker bombs their base.
Bond's just there,
and Bond's like tied down, so they're just like, oh, these guys we were after tied this guy down. He must be on our side.
And from there on, Davi like loves him. He's like, my brother, hermano. I'm like, hermano. Usually you have a thing where the character does something to win over the gangster or bad guy or thug or whatever. But Bond doesn't really do anything other than, hey, you were in the room at that place that we blew up with the tank and I killed. And
I will give it a little bit of credit of that. He's like being friendly with him, but there's still that sense of like, hey, don't leave this fucking compound.
Sure.
Until we find out, he sets up Crest and then he comes and wakes him up. It's like, your information paid off, hermano.
I guess it doesn't have that tension for me that like a Miller's Crossing has. You know what I mean? Like,
no, it's graceless. It's trying to be like three different movies, like in the span of one movie. So like, there's a lot of graceless transition.
But that affects it for me then. Because if you're going to go for that, then really focus on that in the writing.
So there are a couple
half measures.
Based on this exchange, there are a couple things I want to bring up. One, I think there's something to be said that at first, when this script was first written, they were going to spend a good chunk of time in China. They even wrote a whole sequence of chase on the Great Wall of China, but I forget exactly why it didn't work out, but it didn't. Hence why
sons of bitch. Okay.
I don't think it was anything like that. But I think the thing with because that used to bother me a lot more with that movie, where when I first watched it, it's like, man, he kind of trusts him a little too quickly. But I think that the thing that I appreciated the most when I rewatched it now, I just got a sense where Sanchez didn't necessarily trust Bond right away, but he piqued his curiosity. And I like the way that it's not really the script doing the work, but I think the way Davi plays it is really strong. Like, he's like you had you had my attention. No, you had my curiosity. Now you have my attention. That whole bit from Django. That's kind of how it felt that Davi played it, where it was more like, so that I could really get some use from this guy, but I'm still feeling him out, really, even up until the very end. So that aspect of it, I think Rick, you're right. It's underdeveloped, but it grows on me because of the performance, because of the sheer charisma of.
I mean, you can forgive it because of the performance, but I don't think it like.
I agree. I think that's the right word. I forgive it because of the performance.
Yeah, for me, it's just too. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say my biggest hang up with that whole section of the movie is like I said, the contrivance of the Hong Kong police just so happening to be there and catch him, and then they bomb him, and then so like they get blamed for the sniper attack, and then he's tied up, and so like it's not as well developed that
it's too loosely connected
so quickly. It's too contrived. It's too like all these things had to happen perfectly at the same time. So like I don't mind so much that Davi takes a shine to him as quickly as he does. It's just that section really felt the most like you could take it out of the movie.
I guess for me, because it's like a concept that isn't followed through with. Because in that type of movie, like we've seen it in Miller's Crossing, we've seen it in Hard Boiled, you have the undercover person or person infiltrating earn the trust, and to the point that you do, then you have that other guy that start to get jealous. That should have been like the Benicio guy. Like, I don't know about this guy. Like, it's like, but you never trust anyone, Dario. You know, shit like that. And they kind of just don't do with that. They don't do anything with that. They don't. Dario just shows up, and the first thing I thought was like, damn, I guess Bond really thought he got lucky, and this Dario guy who he saw at the bar never ever showed up again. He wasn't worried about that guy ever showing back up again or anything. So it's like it's too thinly conceived.
This is the kind of story, this Yojimbo-esque story, that I would like to see them tackle now that they take a little more time between the Bond movies.
Yeah, with real writers and stuff.
So like, I would like to see, maybe not Purvis and Wade, because they can, not that I hate them, but they've been doing this a while. Like, let's get some fresh blood, but like, get some new writers, and then have fucking Paul Haggis do it, a rewrite like he did on Casino Royale, and get that like Yojimbo idea from the beginning and execute it from beginning to end. Don't have like, we're going to start with a Hong Kong thing, and then we're going to actually do a Colombian drug dealer thing, and just focus, bring it down.
It just undermines the pleasure of the movie. I find the movie overall, once again, with respect, to you, Tom and Tony, like I just find it mundane overall. It's just kind of like listless a little bit.
Same. You're not alone.
Go back to your hole, John. No.
Okay.
I think this is the first Quantum of Solace of the Bond series of that movie. That's like kind of the odd bastard second movie child.
Well, that movie's on cocaine.
Just a movie where like the plotting is kind of fucked up, but like the micro details of it you could kind of just get lost in, because even still, like I like Quantum of Solace, but I still sometimes get lost of like, wait, what the fuck's happening now?
No, I agree.
And it's kind of like this movie.
I mean,
wasn't there a writer's strike in the 89?
No, 89. I don't know.
Or was it 88? Wasn't there a writer's strike in the 80s at some point? I'm gonna look this up because I think there was. I think that's why.
You guys want to talk about the ladies in this one?
I mean,
how one is just like there.
That's a good way of describing it.
Yeah, I mean, but who's the one that's just there for you? Really?
I wrote the Talisa Soto, Princess
Talisa
Katana.
Soto.
Princess Katana
from Mortal Kombat. That's all I know from her.
Yeah.
I was sitting here watching. I was like, "That's the person from Mortal Kombat."
There you go.
Hey, that's also the person from Mortal Kombat.
This is a movie that's weirdly like progressive for Bond, but like you could see it but like you could see it as like a midpoint where like they're trying to get past a lot of the sexist insanity of the older movies. So like, what's the CIA girl's name?
Pam
Bouvier.
So like Pam, there's a lot of stuff where she's like, she
Why aren't you the secretary?
Guys, she's like, guys, hold on. It's Pam and Jim.
Oh my god!
Hey, listen, they're my favorite, Pam and Jim. Sorry to say, that's why I have no success on dating apps. I don't talk all about The Office all day long. She pulls a shotgun on fucking Dario and puts it right at his dick, and she's like, "Don't fuck around."
Benicio loves it,
and he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna take you on a nice honeymoon."
He said, "I flip you for real."
But like, there's a lot of stuff with her where she's like, she stands on her own. She doesn't take shit. She like is very integral to Bond's success at the end of the movie. But then there's this weird, like, she's fucking weirdly jealous.
Yeah.
It's a weird turn.
So she puts his arms around him immediately.
Yeah, and they start on the boat immediately.
Yeah, I was like, God, that used to be like a scene of seduction, like them getting to know each other and play banter. It's not just immediately like, all right, well, I'm going to help you. Good, let's fuck. Like I
nearly retched,
But like, so
it's
like,
disappointing. It's the same thing that happens with this. What's her name, Lupe?
Yeah.
She's just like, he comes into her room a couple of times and all of a sudden she loves him. It's just weird and like very mechanical,
Yeah, it's like, it's this weird, like, the Bond series is in this weird middle ground of trying to like, okay, we've heard the complaints, so we're going to do things differently, but also there's just weird glaring, like, you're still stuck in the past of Pam is going to be this weirdly jealous fucking...
The movie almost tells you that when she's like, how come I can't be your secretary? And he's like, down south, it's a man's world.
We're down south, dear. It's a man's world.
Yeah. And by the way, he tips the fucking concierge $300. I was like, Jesus Christ.
Hey,
like,
listen,
does he pay him with bison bucks?
Christ almighty. I mean, yeah, I do want to add a little bit more context to what Tom said, because he mentions how like they were trying to rewrite the female character to sort of tone down the more sexist overtones of the movie. There's also a different element that they kind of went back on, but they kind of experimented with in Living Daylights. So the 80s was also the high point of the AIDS epidemic, and it's in 81, but it really didn't hit the Bond writers to maybe we should make Bond just a little bit more chaste until Dalton came along in 87, which is why there really are no scenes with Bond and the leading lady of that film, whose name escapes me at the moment, where it's explicit lovemaking. Yeah, I guess so. Where there's explicit lovemaking, and the fact that he has two in this movie is kind of like a reversal.
But he doesn't get with any of them. I mean, he just kisses Pam on the boat.
No, he kisses Pam, and it's implied, and he and Talisa
happens off camera, Rick.
It happens off camera, but
I missed
it's off screen, but he took him to the bone zone.
Oh my God!
He had a license to thrill.
He had a license to drill.
That's the one. Cut mine out. Put Tom's in.
Oh man, talk about sexist overtones. No, I'm kidding. But yeah, no, I think there was all that. That's also in the back of my mind. But I think, Tom, what you had to say was,
but it's still half measures. It's still half measures.
Yeah, it's half measure.
Yeah,
it's a half measure.
It's this series is like stuck trying to do something new, but it just can't break free.
Can't let go.
It really is until the complete nosedive of Die Another Day, where the producers are like, okay, fuck this. We've ruined this. We need to start over and do something new, and not be completely beholden to every single decision that was made in a script session in 1962.
Rick has some strong feelings about Die Another Day. All right, so let's so Tom, you wanted to talk about let's sorry.
We're going to Rick.
Rick, you wanted to talk about the very strong cast that this movie has. So why don't you give us
sorry.
No. Pause necessary. I'm handing you off to you, my friend.
Yeah, I mean, like, just a quick mention, because like you got some real cool like character actors in this. Top of his Frank Mcrae, who in the movie plays a character called Sharky, who was randomly a friend of Felix and James in this movie.
Yeah.
And Frank Mcrae, if you don't know, he kind of was a staple of a lot of John Milius work, including Dillinger, Red Dawn, Farewell to the King. I think he's most famous for playing the police chief who yells a lot. Like, when everyone thinks of that cliche, the chief who yells, whether they know it or not, they're really talking about Frank Mcrae from 48 Hours.
And Last Action Hero.
And right, and a generation later, if they don't know that they're spoofing on 48 Hours, they would think it's Last Action Hero. So he's just a really great character actor. I think he's still alive. I don't know if he works so much anymore, but he's
Ex-football
fantastic.
player.
What's up?
Ex-football player.
That's right, ex-football player and everything. That's pretty, yeah, that's Milius' thing. He always got ex-athletes like the surfer dude and Conan and stuff. And then, of course, we have a son of an actor who we talked about from Russia with Love.
Yes.
Pedro Almendarez Jr.
Yeah.
Playing the president of Planet Isthmus.
Karim Bey.
Karim Bey. Yeah, that's Karim Bey's son. The guy who plays President Lopez in this movie. He's later in Mask of Zorro. He does a lot of stuff with Robert Rodriguez.
He always plays the president.
He's always the president.
He's very presidential.
President.
Do you have
a very request, presidential actor?
Just remember,
you're
president for life.
Right. We mentioned Felix's weirdo 48-year-old, but still beholden to her father's advice or some shit. Loves James, wants a threesome, but Felix won't get the hint, and James wants no part of it. She's played by. She gets murdered. I read somewhere she was implied that it was raped. I didn't get that. But I might have missed a detail.
It's possible.
I think the honeymoon line is meant. You could read that as saying.
Okay.
You can imply it, and seeing that it's cartels, that's actually literally what they do to women every time they grab them. I mean,
I met them, and they're all very fine people.
They're fine people. There's good people on both sides of the license to kill battle.
Yeah, exactly.
But there's nothing ever explicitly like referenced.
Yeah, because she's like James finds her. I guess we should quickly explain. Sanchez is like some guy that they're really finding, but it's Felix's wedding day, so they go. They have this big action scene where they catch Sanchez in a stunt that Dark Knight Rises would later emulate. And John says tops. I kind of agree. Yeah. And then they have a wedding, but then Sanchez gets broken out of jail by Everett McGill
in another good stunt.
Yeah, car literally going over the long bridge in the Key West. And Everett McGill is from Silver Bullet. He's a David Lynch efficient. He's in Twin Peaks. He was in the original Dune. He's just a DA agent who is bought by Sanchez, and they get him out of there, and then they go find Felix, get revenge, and torture him by feeding his legs to a shark, and they kill his wife, played by Priscilla Barnes. So that's all cut up. But the actress is Priscilla Barnes. She's another working actress. She's in like Stepfather 3. She's in The Crossing Guard, a little forgotten Jack Nicholson.
Mallrats.
I was gonna say that.
Yeah.
She plays the psychic with 3 nipples, but not really. It's an edible nipple that she takes off at the end.
Well, that's
does a Scaramanga.
That's a very Bond thing.
It's a good tradition. Nipple.
Well, also,
and then of course, the
Devil's Rejects.
We mentioned Talisa Sato, who is in Mortal Kombat as Princess Katana. Katrina, am I saying that right?
I think so.
Katana.
It is Princess Katana.
Yeah, like the sword.
Right. And then Carrie Lowell, who I would watch, I don't know if anyone else did, and one of the many, 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 many assistant DAs in Law and Order. And she plays the deceased wife, spoilers, of Tom Hanks in Sleepless in Seattle, a movie Tony has recently purchased.
Borrowed from a neighborhood book swap.
And this is a real deep cut. I don't know if many people have seen this one, but the bank manager is this actor, and I was looking at him, and I was like, God damn it, I know that guy from somewhere. And I finally found it. There's an actor named Claudio Brook, and he is the death-avoiding millionaire bad guy in Kronos. He's the guy who wants the puzzle box thing.
Never seen Kronos.
Oh, wow. Well, that's a big recommend. That's a good one. But he's essentially the main villain, the guy Ron Perlman's working for.
How's this for a nice little character actor poll? The guy who plays Heller, Sanchez's bodyguard that he impaled on the forklift at the end. He plays the sheriff at the beginning of Django that Christoph Waltz shoots, and then waits for the ranger.
Oh, there we go. That's what I mean. It's got a really stacked fucking
working
actors cast.
Cary Hiroyuki Tagawa. Fucking Shang Tsung is in this guy.
I totally forgot to write that down. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Rising Sun, Mortal Kombat, a million movies.
He would have been a good Taiga Tanaka if they brought that character back.
True.
Yeah.
True.
Tagawa could have easily been a good choice for a Bond villain.
Yeah.
Over Davi even.
I something tells me, and this is just speculation, that when they were still working on trying to make the movie in China, that they had cast him as the Bond villain, but then had to change
when
course.
They were turning over Tomorrow Never Dies.
They had a hard on for years of trying to make a movie in Hong Kong dealing with the turnover back to Chinese control.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't get to it until Tomorrow Never Dies. One, because of the fucking long lawsuit that made the break between this and GoldenEye so long. And by then, it was literally like, oh, next year that's actually going to happen. So let's kind of do it. But also the bad guy's going to be Jonathan Pryce for some goddamn reason.
Yeah, which is
because you don't want to villainize China, especially when you want to sell movies to them.
Well, at least that was, I don't know what the fuck. They should have just made this guy carry the bad guy as, like, I don't know.
Where are we? Where are we with this one?
Basically just wanted to shout out, like I said, for all the shit we can give John Glenn, the ending action scene rules.
Yeah.
It's a great truck chase.
It reminds me of executive decision in this regard, that like it's like they held their wad until the very end, and then it's just like no holds barred.
Yeah.
And it's also kind of feels very much of a piece with the end truck chase scene in Terminator 2. Like, I honestly wouldn't be surprised if Cameron, and shit. I honestly wouldn't be surprised if Cameron watched this and was like, okay, how do I beat that? And how do I get the guys that did that to make mine work good? Because this worked very well.
Yeah.
You know? Maybe. I feel like he definitely took, Cameron's a fucking Corman guy. He got sued by Harlan Ellison and lost the lawsuit for stealing the Terminator. He's not a guy who's beneath taking ideas from other people.
That is true. That is a very excellent point.
And I just like that Sanchez doesn't know why Bond is doing this until literally the very end, showing him the lighter. He then knows it's Felix, and then he lights his ass on fire. Which is just, I thought it's pretty badass.
Yeah,
but, I think it's dope. I think it's really fucking awesome. So it's funny. I mean, the action sequence is great, but what I actually want to talk about some of the behind the scenes stuff that happened during the filming of that. So first off, the location, that and the compound and Mexico City itself, Broccoli couldn't be there on set. It's the first time he wasn't on location for a Bond film that he was involved with, because the air quality was so bad for his health that he just couldn't be there. But but when they actually went to shoot the truck scene, apparently it's haunted, and there was a lot of weird stuff that happened. Stuff like they would set up like trucks or whatever to go at a certain time. Trucks would just randomly catch on fire. There was one truck that actually moved like a bunch of like a couple hundred feet down the road just on its own, and then came to a complete stop. It was a very eerie location that all kind of culminated with the final explosion of the tanker. They covered with a couple of different cameras, but there was a still photographer taking photos of the set for publicity purposes, and in one of the photos, it looks like out of the explosion there's like a fiery hand coming out to like engulf the truck in flame. It's this eerie fucking thing. And it's like that literally looks like the hand of fate or something crazy like that. And when they went back to look at all the rushes from all the angles, because they covered this at every fucking angle, they couldn't find it, and it spooked the crew so bad that like they passed around copies of this photo, but John Glenn's wife wouldn't allow him to have this photo in the house because she was so spooked by this. So I just thought that was very interesting because they talk about it in the behind the scenes documentary that's attached with the Blu-ray. So it was just a weird thing that I thought was very interesting. So just wanted to add that little bit about that, Chase.
I muted myself so I could hear your story. Fuck you.
I'm saying fuck you to everybody.
That's all I have.
Dry wit. To give. Sounds like those crew members were drunk.
Well, that it was captured in one image and not the same from every other angle just goes to show like how flexible and malleable fire is as plasma.
All right.
I don't know. I got nothing.
I don't know what to say.
I think all ghost and haunted shit is always dumb. So I was like, yeah, one photograph different than another photograph. I don't know.
Like, I don't believe in haunted images or any shit like that.
I mean, listen. I mean, I just thought it was interesting. So I guess that brought this conversation to a screeching halt. But
you're slapping me, asking me why I don't find it more fascinating. I don't know what I'm supposed to just say.
I was teasing you, sir. I was teasing. I was lovingly teasing you. Please, come on. But yeah. So this film turned out to be quite the box office disappointment. We're gonna go deep into that in the next episode.
It did well internationally, if I recall.
Yeah, but domestically, I think it was the weakest Bond movie to date.
I think it's still technically the weakest box office of a Bond movie.
Yeah,
even with inflation and all that stuff.
Yeah, especially with inflation, probably. So yeah, I think that does anybody have any final thoughts on the License to Kill movie?
Budget was $32 million. It made $156.1 million. I have to assume that's worldwide.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think that's definitely worldwide.
That's a lot for 1989.
Yeah, but still peanuts compared to some of the movies that came out that summer, which again, we're going to get into in the next episode. So we like to end what? Go ahead, Rick.
I was just going to wrap. I mean, in terms of a wrap up, like I'm just not a big fan of the film, and I know that's kind of in disagreement with you guys, but
I mean, Rick,
considering the scenario, I just want more out of it. I don't want to like.
You're not alone.
Yeah,
there are many like us.
The thing is, Rick, this isn't a case of like GoldenEye where I'm like I can't like no I legitimately I think GoldenEye is awesome and or what have you and there's just a disagreement on whether we think the quality is or what we think the problems are. I think all of us agree what the highlights of this movie are and what the issues are with this movie. It really comes down to, did it take us out of the movie enough where we just don't enjoy it?
I think the big thing with being a Bond fan, and you see it a lot, is that there's like 3 or 4 that every Bond fan just is like, yeah, that's the 3 or 4 best, and then everything else is just like whatever you prefer. Like there's no like set order for the 24 movies.
A slew of inconsistencies and moments you have to savor.
Yeah, it's all just like we just love Bond. We'll disagree about what's like in the middle of the list.
Yeah. Because
it's just whatever we are like, okay, well, I prefer the highs of this one, could ignore the lows of this one. And then others will be like, well, I can't, but I like these highs and don't mind these lows. It's just taking what you can get, and
there's so many of them.
Yeah,
it's so many set pieces, so many little pleasures and displeasures that, like, yeah, I think it's almost like a phenomenon. I think you're absolutely right. You're going to have these disparate, but I like guys like me, but I like Die Another Day, and other people, everyone, like, what are you fucking stupid?
Well, you're just legitimately stupid, Rick. It's not your fault.
Well, yeah, that's clinically proven.
It's like I'm a horror guy. I love the Friday the 13th movies. Nobody's ever going to sit around and say
you.
But we're like,
right.
Everyone has their favorites, but then there'll be people like, I like Jason Goes to Hell, and people like, you're a fucking moron. I like Jason Takes Manhattan better than that piece of shit.
Right. It's all about Jason X. Right.
I mean, actually, Tom, you actually on your Twitter feed, you actually brought up a really good point, because my favorite slasher series is the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. But you know what? I have to tell you, you're right that there really isn't any of them that have a satisfying ending. Even the best ones.
They're all bad. They're all bad endings because they made a premise where you literally can't end the movie because it's just like, how do we beat a dream demon? I don't know. A fucking psychic worm attacks him in the church and he becomes a big white light. I don't fucking know. And then it's like, how does he come back? A dog pisses fire.
I would disargue that for 3, but I kind of would agree with you on the rest of them.
But even 3 is like, we dig up his grave and he becomes a skeleton.
Well, they do a vampire. They do the vampire thing.
All right.
Holy water, buried in consecrated ground and all that shit,
But then even then, it's like, he pretends to be John Saxon and he attacks Nancy, but then Nancy stabs him in the chest with his own blade and then he disappears. And
not only that, he turns into a skeleton and attacks Bill Maher. I mean, Craig Wasson.
He does look exactly like Bill
When
Maher.
I was a kid, I was like, is that the guy from Nightmare 3 when he was on Politically Incorrect?
That's hilarious.
And
I feel like we're gonna be talking about an Elm Street movie in the second part of this when we talk about 89.
Good point.
That's true.
Because I watched Elm Street 5 before on accident, not meaning to do an 89 connection. And guys, spoiler alert, it fucking sucks.
Well, if that's not good fodder, a good teaser for our next episode, I don't know what is. So we like to wrap. So thank you guys for this awesome discussion on License to Kill. We like to wrap things up here with our favorite game of our 3-question game: favorite original character, favorite Bond kill, and favorite one-liner. And I think that, John, we haven't heard from you in a moment, so I'd like to hear what are your answers to those three questions.
All right. So I guess I'm the contrarian in that my favorite character, my favorite original character from this movie is Wayne Newton as Dr. Joe.
The fuck?
I don't give a shit what you guys think. He is downright the best choice to play the figurehead of a cult.
No disagreement here.
I love them.
I thought his appearance was striking and confusing initially, and I was like, was that Wayne Newton? Why is he an evangelist on television? And then when they revealed that that was the front for their operation, I was like, nice. This is great. And I like the compound. I like his whole setup. Like, he was a more fascinating character through all of the context that I got before actually physically meeting him, that when you met him, he didn't disappoint. He was just as clumsy and fake as you imagined him to be in the flesh compared to the way you saw him on television. And just found it to be a really unique character to throw into a movie that's as tonally inconsistent as it is. Somehow really worked with the whole like Robert Davi setup and the whole idea of it, and that being where they hide their facility, and just worked.
And their helicopter.
Yeah, I enjoy it. I'm with you there. I think I actually love his character. I have nothing against it.
I mean, he's my favorite original character in the movie.
Okay. So what's your favorite Bond kill in this film?
I wrote it down like it was my answer to the end of like a match of Clue, and it's Benicio del Toro with the knife in the drug chopper.
That's a good
I just loved the visual of,
sounds like a toy.
Yeah. I loved the visual of like all the blood blending in with the processed cocaine and like coating it and creating this like red cloud that he disappears into. I thought that was a really interesting visual that just like compared to the rest of the movie really worked out, I feel like, by accident. And I think it just looked really cool. And I thought it was just a really interesting way that they executed it in terms of like the production and everything.
Yeah. And what's your favorite Bond one-liner?
That would have to be when Davi kills his assistant and says, I guess it's time to start cutting overhead. And I know it's like really lame, but
he delivers it with such a plum.
He killed it, and it was just the right thing to say to that guy after all the bullshit he was spewing about how he was burning all the money and everything. It was funny.
Or Jimmy.
It was funny. I don't know. Those are my answers. Take them or leave it.
I think they're great. I take them. Tom, why don't you hit us with your answers to these three questions?
Okay, so my favorite character for all of the for the kind of handful of ways they fail the character, I do like Pam Bouvier for the simple fact that she is a badass and handles herself, and she just kicks a lot of ass. And I think Carrie Lowell was pretty great in the role. Listen, I'm a guy. She's a Bond girl. I thought she was pretty hot. When she shows up with that haircut and that fucking purple dress in the casino, I was like, yeah, this Bond movie got that part right. Yeah, I dug her a lot. For my favorite Bond kill, I have to agree with John and say it's Benicio going into the drug compactor, because Jesus Christ, that is a lot more gruesome than you expect from a PG-13 action movie. Yeah, even in the 80s, where violence was everywhere, you still didn't see fucking, unless it was an R-rated like Charles Bronson movie, something that fucking bloody and violent in a
or
movie.
Indiana Jones.
This is true. And
they got away with murder.
Well, yeah, I mean, Temple of Doom fucking helped make the goddamn PG-13.
Yeah,
the shit they were pulling. Gotta say, PG-13's taking a real hit these days. Not the
it used to mean something.
Yeah, it used to mean nothing.
That's what was great.
it just meant there wasn't as much cursing while and violence.
One boob.
One boob, dude. You fucking the fucking credits of this movie just naked, just straight on nips. You could just see the outline of the nips as they're dancing across the screen. I think this movie doesn't have great one-liners. If there is a big failure of this movie, is it fails the.
We're running into that. That's two in a row. That we ran into that with A View to a Kill. Nothing. Yeah. Nothing for Bond.
So I gotta give it for just how stupid and lunkheaded it is. Of just when he pops out of the boat and says compliments of Sharky and just shoots a guy with a spear gun. I was like, that just kind of like defines how bad the one-liners are in this movie. It's just like he says a line and does something that has nothing to do with the line he just said. Compliments of Sharky. Did you feed him to a shark? No. Then shut the fuck up and just shoot the
guy. I love it. So Rick, why don't you go next?
Favorite new character? I agree with Tom. I like Pam Bouvier, played by Carrie Lowell. I think it's a good prototype of where other characters like Denise Richards. I'm just kidding, but no. In seriousness, it is a prototype of where the stronger female characters were gonna go. Like Jinx and Die Another Day, or in a far more deep way, obviously Eva Green and Casino Royale and so on and so forth. And what it looks like now with Laswana. I'm fucking up her name.
Léa Seydoux.
No, the new one that looks like In No Time to Die, the new so-called 007.
Oh, Lashana Lynch.
Yeah, and I think she's good in it. But everything I've already spent talking about with the script, I think it kind of fails her. But she looks great and she is good in the part. What is it? Favorite kill?
Favorite Bond kill? Yeah.
I like Davi. I like lighting a motherfucker on fire.
That was awesome.
And the fact, because it's also like the fact that he's about to get macheted, and that Davi does take a time to like, oh, what you holding in your head? Feel it's like. It's just like Jesus Christ, which also blows up the truck. So it's like a double whammy. He lights the fucker on fire, and it does the final explosion for the tanker as Bond is getting away.
Which, again, to show how bad the one-liners are in this movie, it doesn't end with him after doing that say, well, I guess his business really went up in smoke.
Yeah, or something, right. Favorite one-liner. If I had to stretch, I guess I kind of, when he throws the money to Everett McGill, who's hanging on by a rope before falling in the tank, and he just says, "You earned it."
you keep it.
Yeah, you weren't. Yeah, that's kind of like that's pretty Bond ruthless. I guess
that's the closest. I mean, I think
it's the closest to like I'm gonna kill you and here's a quip to remember me by as you die.
Yeah, no arguments here. Bon appetit.
I guess maybe Sharky has it with like what a waste. I mean the money.
Of money.
Yeah.
Hey, the great answer. So my favorite original character is Sanchez. I love Davi in the role. I think the character is probably one of the more underrated Bond villains. He actually, I actually completely buy the threat from him, which is something that was missing from a lot of the Bond movies up until this point. Really, pretty much all, like, ironically enough, since Moonraker was the before License to Kill was like the last villain that I was like, okay, like here we go, you got a villain, we got a proper villain. As for all the flaws that Moonraker has, I think Hugo Drax is not one of them. My favorite Bond kill, I have to agree with you, Rick. It is when he
lights your favorite character on fire.
Lights my favorite character on fire. Hey, it's a movie that it's a character that you love to hate. And my favorite one-liner is another. Ironically enough, I think it's actually Sanchez who has the best one-liners in this movie. It's right after he kills Crest, and someone asks him, "What do we do with the money?" And he's just like very casually, "Launder it." I love his delivery.
Oh right, yeah, that is pretty good.
I really like that. But it was another example where the villains get the better one-liners than Bond. That's supposed to be his thing. So yeah. But guys, I think that this was another great discussion in the books. Tom, I want to thank you for joining us on this crazy adventure where we discuss License to Kill. He's going to be joining us for our very next episode.
You Know His Name will return with our lively discussion of the year 1989. It's a very important year if you're a cinephile of any sort. Chances are that if you are a film fan and wherever you lie in your film fandom, 1989 is a pivotal year for you. And that also happens to be the year that License to Kill came out and kind of got lost in the sauce a little bit with some sequels and some high-profile movies that came out around that time. Looking forward to discussing this with you guys. And just everybody, to all of you out there, please stay safe. And remember, nobody does it better. Good night.